today. We're talking to Mr. Lonnie Graves, the author of Ain't Millipus and Her Wheel. And of course, Mr. Graves has another book that will be published, or has been published and will be distributed within the next few days. And of course, Mr. Graves, let me welcome you back to the third segment. Let's pick up on this profile that you've given us, covering all of these years and all of these experiences too that I'm sure that so many people relate to, because I've been able to relate to a large number of things that you're saying. Let's pick up where you wish.
Well, I would like to bring one thing. In the 30s, we couldn't vote in the primaries in Falls County up until in the 30s, and I was a young man, but when the law was passed, I got a notice from the county from somebody that asked to vote for the judge in our county, and on the day there was some sort of a little bit of anxiety, I should say, because no black people voted in the county you can vote in the national election, but not in the county. And so when I went to the town that morning and to vote, there were several black people across the street from the school, where the white school where we was voting. And I said, "Have you all voted?" He said, "No, we not." I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, we just don't know." I said, "Well, I said, I know what the Constitution, the 13th and 14th Amendment said when I was in school. I know what and they said, I said, I repeated. I said, I'm gonna go there, and I'm gonna tell them. If they ask me why I want to vote, I'm gonna tell them that. But I'm gonna repeat those amendments. And I went with that card that I had by myself. I walked over there, everybody standing out there in the yard looking at me, and I walked over that schoolhouse, and I walked to that building and told the guy, and I knew his name. I called, I said, I came to vote. He said, "You did?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, okay." He gave me a pencil and paper, and I voted. And I walked on back over there across the street where the street divided the blacks from the whites. And when I did that, they said, "What happened?" I said, "Nothing happened, I voted." And I'm the first person in that community that voted, and I was a youngster. And do you know, in the 60s, when the school integrated, and the school in Satin was integrated with a school in Chilton, and I was drafted by the school board, not elected. I was drafted by the school board to be one of the first black trustee in that area. I was the first one, and I was recommended by a white preacher, and I voted, and that was, and when I got on that, the first banquet we had, I was surprised. I was all dressed up and everything, and going to the banquet, and they had a table set up with a petition for all the black people to be at one table. And I'm a school trustee. I said, "Now why is this?" And at night when I got home, I called the superintendent and asked him. He said, "Well, the PTA did that." I said, "Well, I don't think it's, if it's going to be iterated, why would I have to be a school for?" And he said, "Well, I'll take that." And that never happened again.
Okay, very good.
But that was another experience that I had. But I assure you that there was some good white people and good black people were good friends where I lived. But it was white and black. That's what it was, and I'm just telling the truth.
Well, that is the truth. Go on. Yeah, that's what we.
And so, but I was able to just when my first child that went to college, the white man that I worked for gave him a check, gave me a check to give him. And that's how it was. At Millipus, this white man that I worked for for 34 years, had a son and went to school and A&M College. He went on. He's a doctor. He's still in Dallas. He's one of the most famous doctors, not only in the United States, in the world. And he was the one that came to my house after I'd written this and Millipus, and he said, "Lonnie, what are you doing?" I told him I'd written a book. What you wrote a book? Where is it? And I gave him a copy of the writing. Okay. And he said, let me carry it home and read it. And he called this print company. Okay. And told him that, man, I want you to look at this book. And the print company, they talked and everything. They called me and they printed this book. And I had met the man because I wrote a history of my church. And at his school reunion, I gave one of the history books to the school, and this man saw the book, and he came up there and visited me on Sunday morning and said, I want to talk to you. And so later on, when Bob Walker found out about the book, called Mr. Akins, his name is in it, and they said, yeah, we would like to publish children's books, but we would like to publish something about black men, and we will publish this book.
Okay, very good.
And he did.
And that's the beginning. And of course, you've had good reception of that.
I've had people. I had a lady called me from Utah, Salt Lake City. I have had a lady to read the book. She teaches at Rice University in Houston, and she is from Turkey. And she said, what you read, I've been so. She said, I just like to meet you. I would just like to meet you.
Well, in a real sense, I think that's why we have you here today. We had an opportunity to read the book, and we were so impressed by the information that you gave, and Mr. McGill was so convinced in terms of who you were, and what a honor it would be, in a real sense, for us to be able to talk to a 93-year-old man who has written a book, and at the same time is also working on another book. You know, I mean, that's very, very optimistic in terms of who you are and what you're planning on doing, but your life, I think, in a real sense.
Well, I think, and Larry McGill, I raised that boy, and I thank the Lord for him. He's just like one of my children.
Well, he thinks the world of you too.
Well,
I can attest to that.
We think a lot of each other. Now, I want to say this: I wrote a book, a story, because I love murder mysteries when I was younger. And I wrote a murder mystery, and this white lady that I can tell you worked for this family. We call ourselves, we're just family. We're family, and so she said, "Lonnie, I want to read the book. If you wrote it, I want to read it." And she said up one night with handwriting now, in my own handwriting, until she said she came that next morning. She said, "Lonnie, I stayed up there 3 o'clock this morning reading that book." So, and that is, I just kind of found out who killed that man. And she said, I just had to find out. And I said, okay. But anyhow, when my house burned, I lost everything that I had. And it burned up. So I didn't get to publish the book. I didn't get to try to publish it either. But anyway, I was determined to write about what I experienced.
Your experiences. And of course, we're going to have to end our show for today here, Mr. Graves. But let me say over the last half minute that we have here, that we certainly appreciate you bringing that excellent information by and giving us that information. And we would encourage all of our members of our audience to look for this book. It's called Aunt Millipus and Her Wheel. And,
yes, sir.
And not only should they look for this book, but they should also be on the lookout for your second book.
And
what's the title of that?
The title of it is 9 Days Till Sunday.
9 Days Until Sunday. And of course, that book, again, being written by a 93-year-old man who is still optimistic in terms of how life has treated him and et cetera. It has indeed been a real pleasure to have you here. And of course, let me encourage our audience to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning.